Hello and welcome to today's Doing It for the Daughters series. And we are looking at what did we learn from our mothers and how has that impacted our relationships and everything in our lives to date until we begin to examine some of these scripts that we've been carrying. So we are joined by a guest host today, Elaine. Welcome.
Hello.
And as usual, we have Sunshine and myself. So, this is a beautiful, beautiful conversation. We're looking at, I guess, mother wounds. We're looking at intergenerational cycle breaking. And we're looking at actually a bigger social cultural conversation around the role of the feminine and what needs to shift for us to actually transform how the feminine is experienced on this planet today and beyond. Let's begin.
Yes. So I think the first thing that I want to talk about is that, as a parent, like I love to tell my children things and give them, knowledge through what I tell them. But I know that ultimately it's the example that I'm setting for them that they're going to learn from. And so, besides what my mother or the women around me may have told me or wanted me to do, we learn through observation, right? And so no one really that I can remember outside of a religious context and the Proverbs 31 woman ever defined what a woman is and what a woman is to be. It was just me watching, my mother. And a lot of times I felt like, watching her meant love meant enduring through things, right? Or being helpful or valuable or picking up the weight of what nobody else can carry, and all of these things that I learned, from watching her because she is a very strong person and she's very determined. And I think a lot of what I interpreted was she's the leader and she's the one who's supposed to do everything that the other people don't do. And it's her responsibility to keep the family first, and what she needs and what she wants is supposed to come last. And the other aspect of that is that these were lessons that I was learning subconsciously. It wasn't like I was taking notes and being like, okay, I'm supposed to just sacrifice everything to make everybody else happy. And then when it's my turn to need something, I won't have anybody. It was just, subconsciously, this is what I was absorbing or whatever. So I guess my question to be, for the two of you is, can you think about what it is that you absorbed as your idea of what a woman should be from the examples that were set for you?
Elaine, do you want to jump in?
Sure, I'll go first. I think for me, my experience was very unique and very different in terms of I did not grow up with my biological mother. Um, Her sister actually took guardianship of me and my brother. So we were still interconnected into the same genes and it was the same family, but I did not grow up with my biological mom. But I grew up with that same foundation of being able to watch the femininity in the bloodline. And in the same aspect, there was no, "Hey, you're becoming a woman. Let's talk about this." Um, I was put into a home in a very protective sense. It was, "We are saving you from being in the system." And so it was just my whole thing has been survival. And so I'm sitting here learning these things since as early as I can remember 2 or 3 is women are surviving. And I was reflecting on it earlier and I was like, I did not see women that were soft, that received, that understood care, that understood value, worth, all of these things, as you were saying, Sunshine, that we're doing is just baseline.
Mm.
It wasn't seen as how much was being done. I saw women who were badasses, who could hang with the men, who drank scotch, who could hold their own, who could build a fence, but was expected to be sexual in some sense. Like, my grandparents' house, like, there were pictures of my granddad getting lap dances on the wall. And so, like, I thought it was just, like, women expressed in that sense. Like, my great-grandmother was, like, at 12, 13, like, "Have you ever had sex with a woman?" Like, it wasn't a very, like, let's learn how to receive, let's understand, like, in terms of femininity was confused with sexuality. And I think that that's a big area that we're struggling as a society is there is a lack of understanding between genuine masculinity and femininity and what it is to embody the essence. Um, I
I
was like, I
think
didn't learn typical roles as well. I just kind of observed, like, they're sexual, they're at the whim of men, they understand what people want without having to be asked, like, very on top of things, and things that 10 years ago I would described as, like, number 1 qualities in myself.
mm,
That overgivingness, yeah.
I would love to pick up on what you were talking about around the actual women that you were raised with were a very similar story to me, actually having underdeveloped feminine principle because they didn't have a model for it and actually protecting themselves by becoming much more masculine. So doing drinking with the men. My mum was actually a tomboy, and that was very much ingrained because it was a protective mechanism. You know,
Mhm.
she was a kid who was put out on the street very early, and so she was a parentified child, so she had to look after her siblings, and this sort of this roughness, this masculine energy, actually was something that I absorbed hugely. And in fact, up until a few years ago, all of my circle were men.
Yep,
And, and it's because, well, partly, I guess, sisterhood wounds, feminine wounds, not having a distrust of the feminine in some way as well, because who knows? But I think from my mum, and something I've dismantled and continue to dismantle, was deeply um, taking on, you know, over functioning, taking on the emotional labor in relationships. My mum was married to a sociopath for 11 years of my life anyway, but she also, my dad was 17 years older than her and very, very passive, unable to really look after himself. And so she took on that role of mother, overbearing mother as well for him, and then took on the same role for another man child. So what I saw was men who were not able to actually be in healthy masculine energy. And I then actually took on men like that myself. And again, so I perpetuated this role of the woman as being this independent, hyper independent, what I call the wounded huntress, who has to go out and provide for herself, has to go out and um, have be okay for herself without relying on the masculine. So that is the thing that I began to unravel and open myself. And I think a lot of the thing that women need to really do, apart from all of that work, is learn how to receive as step one.
Absolutely. When you were talking about the just like the masculinity of your mom and how she was, attracted to male friends and like hanging with the guys, both of you or whatever. My mom is the same way. So I love that we all kind of have that in common. She, you know,
My grandma too. So my grandma, who last year, and you know, guys, you were with me in that 2025 year of like complete internal alchemy, Gene Key 59. My grandma came to me a lot. So my gran left my dad at 10 years old and went to a different country in the Caribbean as an independent woman to go and work. So she very much like me, and this again, this pattern of women who leave these like Well, my mum didn't leave the maternal role, but my gran went out. Very unusual for a woman of that era to go work, own home in Curacao. And what I was wanting to say is the first and only time I went and met her was when I was 19 years old, and my dad hadn't seen her for 50 years, and we went, and all her friends were men, and she was to drink a tiny little bit of whiskey. She didn't drink a lot. And she said to me, because I had a guy I was hanging around with, and she was like, "I afraid of men. I afraid of men." And I was like, "That's a really interesting thing to say." But obviously last year, my grandma was coming to me a lot, and she was saying, "It started with me and it ends with you." And I was like, "Okay." Mm. But no, sorry. The sad thing was, both her and my mum never opened their hearts again. They never found they didn't do the work, and so my mum won't attempt to open her heart or be vulnerable. I mean, tears are a no-no for my mum. Like, massively unable to cry. Like, crying is deep shame for her. But I just love that despite everything that I've ever gone through, I actually truly have actually maintained an open heart anyway, but I'm excited about the relationship I get to have with the masculine going forward. In this polarity, in real polarity.
Yes. Um, as you were speaking about the relationship that your mom had to men and that like those were her close friends or whatever, thought about like, my mom will often say like, she just is not a girl's girl. She's a guy's gal. And like, she senses this conflict, with women or whatever. And, it could definitely just be like projection from perception, right? Or whatever. Like it's always something with women. But one day I was watching this show and the host was like, I was horrible mother to my children, but I was a great father.
Hmm.
And that is like my perception of my mother. Not that she was a horrible mother, but that she really showed up in that masculine father role for me. And I kind of took that on when I became a parent. I became a parent at 17. I'm really just going off my subconscious. I'm like, okay, you work, you make sure that they have food, somewhere to stay, and not really focus as much as I am now on just like the nurturing aspects of mothering that have nothing to do with provision and more to do with who you are and how people feel around you and like those softer feminine, qualities and things like that. And I think what helped me make the shift into that type of motherhood, definitely was like forced. It wasn't like me just being like, oh, I want to be soft now. It was my life falling down,
Destruction.
right, and feeling, this resentment toward the life that I had built for myself because I didn't want to be a damn man. I was like, "I'm tired of being a man." I was like, these men need to be fathers to their children. I don't want to be the daddy no more. Y'all pay for them. Pay for these kids. And so, at that point, they were like over the age of 10. So, I felt comfortable of like, hey, go be with your dad. And I have all boys. So I don't necessarily have, the concern about sending them with their dads that some mothers may have or whatever. I felt like, hey, this is the best thing for you. You can go with your dad. He can teach you how to be a man because even though I've been a great father, I'm not a man. And I'm responsible, for teaching you how to be a man. And I don't really like the example that I've set for you to what to look for in women. So it's just like that resentment is what I wanted to hit on, that is like underlying when a woman is having to force herself to go outside of her natural design as a woman, a receiver, and become the one that has to give and give and give to everyone else. And then that grief that she feels because there's no one around to reciprocate. She hasn't been giving to people who feel any sort of duty to give back to her. And it's almost like her labor is expected. And so there's not a level of appreciation for what it is that she offered, or sometimes people don't even notice all the things that are being done in the background. And it's, just this underlying resentment is there or whatever, not to mention the exhaustion and the disappointment because you kind of do all these things for other people with the expectation that at some point this is going to be returned to me or I'm going to be rewarded for being this way. Because a lot of times that over functioning and over giving comes from a place of feeling like you need to earn love. Well, when you're doing all of this shit to earn love and then nobody loves you, like it creates a deep, deep resentment within you or whatever. And like I started to feel that resentment and it was like uncomfortable for me to not be a doting mother and be happy that I was a mom and that I had children. I just really resented the choices that I made to become a teenage mother. And so it's like I'm carrying around all of this weight of like, oh, I hate my life. I don't even want these kids. I wasn't even old enough to my prefrontal cortex wasn't developed when I had any of these children. And now I'm stuck in this life and just like really in this dark, just icky energy about the life that I had chosen for myself. And I felt really trapped in it. And so I just wanted to know if either of you have experienced or witnessed that resentment in a mother when she's been overgiving and not had her expectations for that overgiving met, or she's tired, or now she needs somebody and nobody is there for her.
Elaine?
I think that the resentment piece is one of the biggest defining underlying factors to why it keeps happening. I think that I saw the resentment being shown in negative coping mechanisms. I think that's where the drinking, the smoking, the hanging out, being one of the guys, let's just because if you can't beat them, join them. Essentially, like and I feel like women have this complex ability to be able to telescope out and really see a lens that is has a little more depth. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying like we see things better. But that lends to the fact of like where we can almost be better at being able to manage. Like I feel like women can be potentially master manipulators and to be able to function in that role and then also like do it better sometimes I feel like really triggers some of those other masculine features or feminine features in men that like you were saying Jess like you just keep attracting that same type of man that needs you to fulfill that role but then there's no reciprocation and it's just like and you think it's something that you're doing wrong when the thing that you're doing wrong is misplacement. It's not changing who you are. It's not being like because I don't think necessarily it's overgiving because it's landing wrong. It's like I think if it's naturally I've been battling this for a few years back and forth and um very lucky to have a partner that is patient and transparent, but also can say like he said a couple of really big things to me. One, you're a bitch. And two, he said, like, you let people use you and don't realize it. And that was something I really had to sit with. And I'm like, no, this is just who I am as a person. Like, I just enjoy being like this. And it does give me a lot of fulfillment. But when I sit down at the end of the day and I feel depleted,
Mm.
exhausted, so tired I don't even want to brush my teeth or showering's difficult and then it's just like oh mom's depressed or sad or it's not exhausted when people are looking at it and I feel like that resentment piece just starts to build and I think that's something that makes it nerve-wracking for people to nerve-wracking until you realize that the power is within yourself. It's not changing or feeling like you have to learn or relearn or unlearn. You just have to apply it in an alchemized place. So I took that and started building it into my business this year and was like, okay, if I know that I love to work and I work hard and I will dedicate everything in me to somebody, I'm going to do that for myself. And I think that that is one of the big pieces of not necessarily changing who that is because I think it is a very feminine feature to give as much as it is to receive when it's a duality system. When it's not, we're not in friendships or community to be in a reciprocation, but we are to have alchemized energy. And so I think that looking at it less from it's not a transaction, but it's a flow.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the transaction versus flow thing for sure.
But if you're showing up in situations where you're attracting men who are looking for transactions because the actions look the same, I feel like something that makes growing and changing difficult, I think, is because it does have a lot to do with intention, but intention doesn't negate action when the action is misaligned. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like that is the piece that makes it really difficult. Isn't am I over giving? It's am I giving to the right person? Because if it feels good, then you're not over giving. And that's where I struggle a bit of like, I feel like I watched all these women just give and do and coordinate and be there. And I grew up in the house that was the rock. Like she did everything for everybody. I mean, she had split household as well, so she traveled to both grandparents. That was hours each way. Like, she showed up in whatever fashion or capacity. Everyone called her, talked to her, like, let me get her opinion because she was honest. She was transparent, but also she was there. And so I saw what it was like to feel like you just had to constantly be there. And I'm like, a few years ago, she said something to me and she was just like, I'm just tired of being everyone's rock. And I'm like, I bet, because when no one's calling you saying, how are you feeling? Like, how are you grieving? How are you doing? And it's always you receiving, receiving, receiving that. It's like, now do we need to learn what to receive? We're not a reciprocal dumping ground at the same time.
That resentment tied to being needed but not known.
Mm, like that, yeah. And not seen, like, yeah.
Yeah, I relate to a lot of what you were saying about like your mom being I see my mother as the matriarch. She is the matriarch in her, family that she grew up in, which is crazy because like she was adopted into part of that family. Part of them are, her blood siblings, but and it's just like people, call her for advice or if something isn't going right or if somebody needs to be put in line. Like even like if somebody in the family needs to be disciplined, it's like, they know my mom is like crazy and she'll, take care of, or they know like nobody's gonna do anything weird with her around because they know that she will shut it down, and just like being seen as how she's useful to people. But I think that on some level, it's probably been a joy for her to have a projector as a daughter and someone that truly sees her. Maybe also uncomfortable for her because it's something that she really doesn't experience a lot or whatever, or maybe even annoying sometimes, but also to be deeply seen by someone can be really helpful to relieve some of that resentment and move out of identifying yourself based on what you do as opposed to who you are, because that's something that I was hearing you saying as well. Is like having that identity that is just tied to, oh, well, this is who I am. I do all these things for these people and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think something that we have to be careful with that is like that seeps quickly into a victim mentality sometimes. And I think that sometimes it's also an identity confusion. It's like I know who I am because I think and I feel this way about myself, but what am I doing? Like what example am I showing? And very grateful. I was going to say at times, but very very grateful to have a daughter, but it is like that was one of my wake up calls was like, I always say she's my biggest role model because it's like looking literally into a mirror. Like it is crazy. And it's like, I already know what you're going to say or do like before I can see it. But it's not one of those. I grew up in the similar, like, be seen barely. Definitely don't be heard. Definitely don't do as I do, do as I say. And so to be able to build a relationship with my daughter that's we're all trying. Like, I will say it all the time. I'm like, "If you see me struggling or doing something, like, call me out," and she'll be quick to, "Hey, mom, this song makes me think of you because you overthink a lot," and I'm like, "Oh, what do I overthink about? Let's have this conversation. Like, what do you see?" Because, like you said, children are perceptive and they are just absorbing all of this. And I definitely don't want her to absorb something without context or understanding, especially if it's coming from a wounded place. And I did all of my children's human design charts, and we all have the genetic wound of repression. So I'm like, oh man, I feel like a tinge of guilt knowing that it's gonna still continue to be passed down, but also happiness of awareness of, like, now we can work through it together because that repression, it comes like, that's where the resentment comes from, is repressing what you really wanna say sometimes or how you really feel, especially if you're seen as being the transparent and tell it how it is. There's always a side that we're not telling.
How have you shifted that pattern so far? The repression, like
Uh
saying, like, having difficult conversations, or how does it show up for you?
I think that, right now I'm coming to my daughter, well, both my children are 14, I have twins, but we're coming to a pinnacle of, like, where we're gonna start exploring dating and, feelings and emotions and puberty and everything that entails being a woman. That I didn't learn, so now I'm learning at the same time. But it was more of having a conversation of no matter what you say, you will not be judged and you will not, like, be made to feel like you need to change how you feel, but we explore through questions. It's less of like, "Oh, well, if you do that, then you're this," or, "Oh, if you think like that, then it's this." Like, it's definitely taking a lot of time to slow down and process, is this a feeling or is this a truth? Do
Mm,
I feel this way because I was told this, because I learned this, or because I think that it's something that could genuinely hurt? And I think that separating hurt versus exploration is huge for me in that sense. But I mean, she told me she thought that I should be a youth counselor, so I feel like we're heading in the right direction of, like, creating openness and safety is the biggest thing. I feel like, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in a household that you were kind of I did a lot of suppressing of myself, from very early on. I learned that that was survival, was fitting in and assimilating and making sure that you don't stand out, don't cause chaos, don't cause disruption. So sometimes to let her be herself, I'm like, because I know that it's just coming up because I'm like, man, like, what is going on? And it's more of like, there's sometimes where I just have to go leave and like cry because it's so beautiful to see and experience it. But also, like, I'm not used to this. So can you do this for 2 more minutes and then give it a break? Or can you do this in your room? Or let's go to the park or something. Yeah. It's
mm.
healing for me too. I'm very grateful.
Yes. I've been doing a lot of like work around like putting together things that I want to put out, in the atmosphere and in my community about leadership and as it relates to creating belonging or whatever. And that's kind of what I was thinking about when you were talking about how you parent your daughter and she doesn't have to worry about, oh, if I say the wrong thing, then I'm going to be shunned or is going to be, that the person disapproves not of what I said, but of me. And I think that that's kind of what drove me a lot in my childhood to just conform to what was expected of me. Like you said, I noticed that, oh, if I act the way that these people want me to act, then I'm more accepted and, more likable and all of those things. And then it's like coming into, my true womanhood, I realized that becoming someone else to be loved actually blocks me from love because who I really am isn't being loved. And who I
Mhm.
really am doesn't get that sense of belonging because I'm just conforming to fit into a space. And so that basic need that I have for belonging isn't being met. And the only way to truly meet that need is through that authentic expression. And then that, creates a pathway to belonging. So I find myself recently creating balance between the version of me that avoids conflict or not showing up as I want to be perceived or expressing, what it is that I really want to say, or that person who goes straight to 0 to 100, and like if I
Hmm.
do really express is because I'm exploding and vomiting on everyone and those things. And it's like being able to be in even an emotional anger or rage, but still express myself in a way you know, that isn't dishonest, but also isn't harmful. So being able to be like, yes, I am mad and this is what I am angry about and this is why I'm angry. And I don't have to buffer the fact that I'm angry or wait until I'm not feeling anger to express myself. So
Hmm. You're better than me. I was just talking about this the other day, and it's like sometimes I'm still at that point of like, I can't have this conversation right now,
yeah,
but being able to at least say it.
I think a lot of it is I'm now in connections where I feel safe enough to do that. I don't feel like, oh, if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to lose this relationship or, this connection is going to be lost. And even if I do feel that way, I'm at a place where it's more important to me that I'm expressing and being authentic than it is for me to maintain connection with other people because I want to be myself and be loved and accepted for myself. So if who I am is a problem and me showing up as myself is a problem, then I don't need the connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is the biggest lesson that my daughter is showing me. And like to see like all of her friends are like eclectic and they all have different styles and they all like different things and they all show up looking like that in the same space and they all get treated with equal love and acceptance. And I'm just like to watch it happen in real time in the generation coming up after being in like I grew up in the Bible Belt South. I also grew up where I found myself naturally gravitating towards people of color, and that was not accepted at all. Like when I moved in with the family that raised me, the very first person who ever made friendship with me was a Black girl. And she was like teaching me about Kirk Franklin, and we were doing dances in the schoolyard. And like we just had like this connection. And it was like every single stage I went, I just found myself naturally connected and I couldn't even take that home to, like, be friends or anything like that because it was just rejected, like, really seriously in my entire family. And so to try to be in communion, like, with people in general, it just felt like our home is the only safe space to be. So it was like I can't even express myself inside my own home. So now I'm, like, almost 40 and I'm just now even determining who I am or figuring it out because the suppression is so real that I'm like, if I can't be myself, then I don't need to be here. But now I'm questioning myself, like, who am I? Like, not only do I not know how to be a woman, I don't even know who I am as a human or a person anymore, just because of how interwoven and ingrained all of the things that we've learned through observation. And I don't know I'm the oldest, so I was the caretaker role as well. I'm not sure about y'all.
I'm the eldest, but I don't think I've ever I don't think I've ever really had a caretaker role. I mean, I have been pretty, like, free, to be honest. I don't have kids. I receive a lot from healthy masculine men. I have had a wonderful life, to be honest. Like, I'm just listen I'm like, "Actually" I've traveled, I've had the freedom to do what I want when I want the majority of my life, except, when I was teaching, I was overgiving, I was hustling for my worth, I was proving my excellence was really a side byproduct of needing to earn love and to be perfect. And I do believe in excellence and mastery and being actually the best at what you do in your career. I do believe that. I believe that is intrinsic in me. But there was an element of it being unhealthy as well. And that's where the overgiving because I wasn't examining what was going, like why I was given to depletion, why relationships were secondary to workaholism, and this is where the masculine comes in again, this wounded huntress. But when the huntress becomes integrated, um it's not problematic. You can actually go out, you can have your creative contribution, you can serve others deeply with your love and from overflow, and you've got space and balance to pour into intimate partnership or connection or friendships. And but yeah, I think I'm a big paradox. I'm a walking, I mean we all are, but I really am, in the sense that, like, I've had a lot of freedom. I've had a lot of beauty and magic, but but I've also had my lessons and my patterns showing up in pockets of life that I think I've released a grip on now. So I'm looking forward to divine union with my monogamous divine, or maybe not. Maybe I'm going to go get myself a lover.
Just I'm glad you hit on receivership because that's like what I wanted to ask you about. Like I just when I think of you, I think of like people just like gifting you and throwing things at your feet. You know, I don't know how to explain it, but like that's my, perception of you, and like what I see like deeply in you is just like, oh, people just give to me.
This is
And
what happened.
because of what I grasp from, my mother, it was always, I don't need nobody for nothing. I don't have to ask anybody for anything. You'll need me before I need you. Like that's the, the vibe or whatever that I kind of took on. And it's like, I'm in a space where, I am in a partnership where I am receiving, but even in that, like I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask for an allowance so that I don't have to keep asking, because I don't like asking for things. Like, I just don't want to do it. I just, want you to just give me things. And that's kind of immature. Quite honestly, like part of being a receiver is being able to be open and honest about what you want, what you need, and to make those requests in confidence that, even if I don't get it here, I'm going to get it because I put it out into the universe and it's mine. So I just wanted you to talk to us a little bit about like your journey through receivership of like how you go from having male role models who can't even provide for themselves, nevertheless give to you, to being in a state of receivership where people are just randomly sending you pounds and pounds and pounds without sometimes you even having to really ask.
Yeah. I it two There were 2 points in my journey that we have to start with, and the first one was when I had my first awakening, and I was in Thailand, and this was the first time I started doing shadow work. It was the first time that I held a mirror up to my life and said, "Well, why am I experiencing abuse in my intimate partnerships? Why am I accepting sex that doesn't fulfill me? Why am I surrounded by men that I'm always having to give to rather than receive from?" And just like, why? And I was in Thailand, and because I'd been raped that August and abused in my own home, I I had this deep feeling, like, that was the first time I realized I just had not been loved. I just wasn't loved. And I decided I wanted to go to a tantra retreat because I wanted to reclaim my sexual power. And so I paid for this retreat, and I got halfway through it. We were all naked in a circle, deep breathing. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, I am not having these motherfuckers touching me up. Like, there's nobody in this room that I want to have any sexual relationship with. And so we had a break, and I went to the woman and I said, I need, like, firstly, I was crying so hard, trying to assert my choice. I just don't want to do this, because I felt I was betraying her or being disloyal. So that's the first point where I realized that actually advocating for myself in any basic way was almost impossible and felt deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And I left without asking for a refund or anything. Anyway, a few days later, I'm traveling, so I'm like, I need cash. And I was like, I was explaining this to someone, and they were like, ask for a refund. And I was like, I can't. Um, so anyway, I eventually did. Again, it was an initiation. It was learning how to break free of this pattern, this invisible pattern. I asked for a refund. She gave me half of it back. And the thing that she said to me as she left, as she came to meet me at a coffee shop, she said, ask for what you want. And that was a seed that got planted in me. And it was just like a cosmic alarm. Ask for what you want. And because the concept of asking, because I guess I just didn't believe that I could receive, like I couldn't get what I wanted, especially when you're young and you're raised in a house where you want the things that you want, you just can't have anyway, because there's just no money or this or that. So um, that moment of ask for what you want was key. And then when I got back from Thailand, I was in this I'd been deep in Abraham Hicks. So I was deep in appreciation, deep in receptive mode. Like I had been pouring my subconscious with these teachings and practicing them and embodying them. And I went to the Portobello Market when I was looking at crystals, this, like my magpie eye caught this stall and it had these crystals and things. And the guy starts chatting to me and he's like, hey, here's this like egg thing. Do you want it? Do you want it? You can have it. And I was like, oh, really? I can have it. So he tried to give me something. And rather than just receive it with grace, I couldn't. I bought something in order to, like, yeah,
Say.
yeah, compensate. That was another moment. So that was in the same year. One was in like January. This happened in like the March. And that was when I finally sort of cracked open this receiving thing. Because it's not so that I wasn't receiving, like I traveled, like the year before, I traveled across the Atlantic on a yacht for free. Like, and had a butler and all these things. Like I was still receiving, but not in the same way. So anyway, those two moments were defining and pivotal moments for me, shifting my consciousness around my assumptions, my beliefs, my expectations. And from there, I just got comfortable at receiving. And I don't know, maybe also my circle shifted as well, like the quality of the people around me, actually, who I magnetized, so my fractals. Because the level of our own self-worth and our self-concept, obviously the world rearranges for you. So I was living from that moment up until this year. That's what I would call, and it's 7 years now. So it was deconditioning. I was living was it footloose and fancy free? I had a meme of this woman with like an ostrich, and she's like, "Oh, what should I do today? No kids. I'll follow this ostrich." And like that's basically how I've been living for the last 7 years. And so in those years, I have become a queen, very powerful. My receptivity has grown. It was only last year when I opened November, as you all know, because I keep repeating the same story. I was like, okay, I want sacred union. Because now, after 7 years, I'm ready. I've done my individuation. I know a lot more who I am. Why am I not in connection and partnership? Oh, wow. Okay. I'm going to crack you open now because we're going to crack open that level of what was going on. So, and even with the Ghost of Lovers Past #4, it wasn't like, I mean, he loved to please me. He loved to like worship my body. He did provide for, he wasn't planning the dates, but maybe I was being a bit nuts as well anyway. God, I tell you now, I was being massively nuts. No, I was. I was not detached. I was very penetrative. And that is part of that 59 as well, and just my energy in my human design chart. So I've learned a lot from that. But So does that clear? Does that answer the question?
Yes, what I heard, like, is really kind of the key in a lot of things that you've been teaching me in the ID shift is about you notice what, the belief is and the problem is or whatever, and you go in and you do something to shift the belief. But what is most essential is taking an action at whatever level you can take an action. So, even if all you can do is ask for a peppermint, ask for that peppermint,
Mhm.
and start getting into that identity through your action. So
Right.
I really do appreciate that you did answer the question and really made that come alive.
Yeah, good. And that's the embodiment. So the more you lead from the identity, that's from an identity level, and you expect this, and you assume that this is the thing. Of course, I mean, like bus drivers. Like, even if I get on the bus, I get driven to my house. Like wild things happen because I'm open, and I don't know. Your aura just starts to attract this shit, because you expect it now. But not in a like, not an entitlement. It's not, it's just because your energy is like, and remember when I wandered the earth, that was another key moment actually. So the June, I go to Costa Rica, 9 days in, I dream of the crab. I see that I have to get rid of everything. I get rid of everything I own. I have no money. I'm following synchronicities. I have to learn to receive. And I'll tell you what I learned on that trip, the biggest thing, because this was it. It was the deconditioning, actually. It was the layers being peeled. I had to have trust in life. So one of my foundational um, paradigms for living suddenly became a deep trust, root chakra, a deep trust that life will support me. And it always has. Now I'm moving to a new level because I got too much in the life will support me, and I wasn't really taking enough responsibility. I was imbalanced as well. But we'll go into that with my masculine last year because I didn't want to do too much. So I got too much in the feminine, and that's not healthy either. Really not healthy. Maiden, oh, look after me. But I so I had this deep trust in life, and when I got to Malaysia, I've got I got there with £300, and I've put it down on this house that I'm intuitively guided to, and like it's coming to an end. But I had a dream that the landlady would put me up anyway, so she did. But when I sat in the kitchen, and I remember I had nothing, so I had to wait, and people were supporting me. Like people would send money, and things would just happen, but it was like bare minimum in that sense. So I would have £100 here, enough to just get some food. It was great because I was receiving, but I was also receiving just enough to live, right? And I was relying on others, on the generosity of people, which was at in some ways very disconcerting for me. And and this is what I actually wrote down and I remember, because I remember hearing and saying, "Oh," because I'd been studying since 2014 what interdependence would actually look like, because I began studying that for my teaching and my philosophy on global citizenship. And I was like, oh, this initiation is teaching me that you cannot be interdependent if you cannot be dependent. So if you don't know how to depend on others, you cannot be interdependent. And so I was learning to again release all of that tension and that survival nervous system wiring that means you have to be the one, go out, support yourself. I had to let that go, and that in a very dramatic way, as in wandering the earth with nothing and receiving. And that was the journey. That's actually the evolutionary pathway.
I love that. I feel like that we pretty much hit on all of the things that I felt like were essential to this episode. I did want to just take some time to show appreciation for the women who came before me, because one thing that they did do is like fully develop that masculine energy. And it's important that we have both, masculine and feminine. Like you said, you can't just be all in the feminine energy. And to a certain extent, them embodying that masculine energy is what created the container that made it safe enough for me to even explore the feminine and get into femininity and feminine energy. So, just, giving gratitude and thanks, for that. I know for me, a lot of times, sometimes when I'm watching things back, I'm like, God, it sounds like you hate your foremothers. It's like, I do not. It's just me wanting to honor them by evolving and doing something different so that the women that come after me also evolve and do something different. And in order for me to do that, I have to be critical of what I saw, what I inherited, what I, embodied from the example so that I can make the changes that I need to make or whatever. But it doesn't take away the fact that I'm very grateful that when my father wasn't standing in and being the masculine energy that needed to be for the household, that my mother did stand up and make sure that I had a roof over my head and food and all the things that I needed and structure and, a work ethic to be able to earn for myself and take care of myself and all these children that I have. So, I'm very grateful for those things. It's just I desire balance as well. And I want to be a woman and I love operating in my feminine energy. And as you were talking, Jessica, I mean, I probably am right now, if I'm honest with myself, probably leaned over 80% in that feminine. And I could probably take that down a notch so that I'm a bit more balanced or whatever. And I am, working on that in this current moment, but it's owning that I've kind of like shifted myself over into the opposite extreme, in which that's the way I learn through extremes. I go all the way on one side and then all the way on the other, and then I'm able to kind of finally, create a little bit of balance. So yeah, I'm definitely just grateful for this conversation. I have the chills. And I wanted to know if there's anything else that either of you wanted to close with. You're more than welcome to take the
Elaine?
Um, so I want to say thank you for touching base on us being thankful for the women as well. I think a lot of times whenever we're dissecting patterns and wounds, it's automatically assumed that nothing good. And like Jess, you even said it, you're like, I had a wonderful life. And it's like, I had a wonderful life too. I went to college, I played sports, I had a lot of privileges that a lot of people didn't have growing up. Like I lived in a household where they truly loved me. And I feel like they really did the best that they could do with the wounds that they had. Um, but like to ignore what I went through would be to ignore the progression of working through these things so that they are passed down in a more healthy fashion for the people coming up. And so I thank you for circling back and making sure that we show like gratitude and appreciation. Because I'm in that aspect of like where I'm still trying to find like reciprocation without guilt or shame. And
Mm.
so for me, I'm still in that like, no, I can't accept that. Like, even when you asked me to come on, I was like hesitant because I almost said no after I just made my claim to myself the next day, I'm going to start receiving what shows up. And so it's just like I am still grateful for everything.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you a question? What was the reflex? Like, what's the reflex when you're like, "Oh, no, I don't I don't wanna do that." What came up? I'm just intrigued.
So I grew up in a house where it was like if you received, then you were a leech. You were not in community. It
Yeah.
was like you need to work just as hard. It needs to be 50-50. You don't like, especially being connected, I think, to my biological mother still, it was if you don't work hard, if you don't go to school, if you don't play these sports, if you don't lose weight, if you don't carry yourself like this, if you don't look like this, you're going to be just like that. You're going to fail, you're going to not be a good mother. And so when I went through the battle of like custody with my children and separation of my marriage and dissolution of it, like it was a wound that cracked me open. And I was just like felt everything from before. And I was like, I had healed these wounds, but I had not felt these wounds. And
Mm.
it's very different of, oh yeah, I'm just going to receive whatever comes up. And then it comes up and I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't know how to receive, but it is accepting those small things of like, thank you for holding the door and practicing like that 28-day gratitude ritual, like practicing those like gratitudes and realizing we have more to be grateful for than we do to have to like heal from. But at the same time, if you're just healing, then you're still just open. You're not filling it with love. And that's really the goal,
Mm.
right?
Mm. Nice. Love that. I just feel really relaxed. Mm. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say as well about the it's so important, as you say, that when we do any type of ancestral work, we actually are looking at the I guess it's not just ancestral, it's psyche work. Anytime we look at our psyche and we look at a pattern, one of the trainings I did is in timeline, and it's in a couple of other, in the shadow to sovereign process that I've developed. It's what were the benefits. So
Yes.
we always take on like it might have like what were the benefits of not receiving? Like because there are actual benefits to that. And the same with the our family, our ancestors, like yes, we got a lot of the intergenerational patterns, but what were the actual the gifts that we received as well, like resilience or as you talked about. So yeah.
I think that something that's really big that comes from this is knowing that you can means that you're receiving because you want to, not because you have to. And
Mm,
I think separating, like, I know I can do it myself. Like, I am one of the hardest workers. I am one of the most intelligent people. I see things very clearly. I work very fast. I learn quickly. Like, I have all of these, like, really masculine traits. And it's like, I don't need it, so it's more of a, like, desire, and I feel like that falls right back into that feminine energy of, like, "Oh, I just want to" I'm getting goosebumps now, just, like, make my body feel good, like, receive it, not
mhm.
take it.
Yes, yes, yes. Just even talking about that, this is a lot of what I used to say when I was talking about sales. I'm coming back to sales again. But I used to say in the group, instead of trying to get clients, how would it feel to receive clients? Because it really does shift how you how you attract and how you what you open to. Yeah.
It's a
Mm,
big thing for me in my human design. I found on my right place, right time is what I'm supposed to be in, but I've always been in, especially I feel like as a manifesting generator, wanting to do anyway, like add that with like really deep, like masculine traits of like, I am never like, if I'm sitting down, I am working, whether it's here, computer, whatever, but just being able to sit in that energy
mm,
is the big key. Yeah.
okay.
I love what you were saying about the shadow to sovereign work because being able to acknowledge the parts of us that adapted survival strategies and thanking those parts and showing gratitude for those parts and acknowledging what it is that they did and why those parts were doing that has been like the crux of my being able to move past some of those patterns because even like we were talking about that resentment, it's like those parts are not willing to let go of what they're doing or whatever because they think that they're doing this to help me, to, save me or whatever. And it's like if I'm not appreciating that, there's almost like that internal sense of resentment, but when you show the gratitude and the appreciation of like, hey, I thank you for doing this and we don't have to do this anymore. It's beautiful matchup. So I thank you for bringing that out.
Mm, yeah. Well, that's the root of the inner conflict, isn't it? It's where a conflict internally between the pattern and what's going on. All of that. Yeah.
And being able to choose, I think sometimes we see like a wound and we think that we have to like automatically get rid of it, or if we have a defense mechanism, like, oh, I need to heal this. But it's like you can also use that skill that you learned to be like, oh, thank you. Now I can alchemize this for where I'm going in the future. Like, if you want to come with me, hang tight. Like, we'll be there in a little bit. Like, it's not that you're no longer needed, it's that
Mhm.
we can now use placement of these things.
And it links to what you said at the start as well, when you said, actually, I'm channeling my energy into my business.
Hmm.
So it's the same thing. It's about how can I channel this energy or this idea into something else in a more healthier way? So moving out of survival to not thrival, but I said it. There we go.
I like it. I like it.
Okay. All right, guys. So, yeah, I think that's our episode on what, let me see what it was actually on. What we learned from watching women survive. So, as always, we'd love you to join the Divine Femme Collective Facebook group. We'd like you to follow or subscribe and share this episode. And we'd like to join the conversation. So, put some comments and let us carry it on and evolve this, anything from this session and beyond.
Thanks for having me.
Right?
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.